So I've been thinking about something specific, and I had a few minutes I wanted to share here. So I've been thinking a lot about what actually makes a speech or a presentation meaningful in any kind of setting. And I think this is an interesting topic to me because a lot of people, a lot of us underestimate just how many key ideas and lessons and things that we can take away from almost anything that we listen to. It doesn't matter whether we're listening to a technical expert at a conference or some community leader speaking about their experiences, or even just a friend sharing a story, even a young person or anybody sharing a story about trying to learn something new. There's almost always at least one piece of insight or wisdom that we didn't expect. At least that's what I found. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. How much value there really is in listening, in being open and approaching other people's stories and presentations or conversations with a mindset that learning is everywhere. Whatever I'm watching or listening to someone, I try to remind myself that this person has gone through experiences or even a particular experience that I have not in every case. They may have specialized knowledge in something or simply lived through something that changed the way that they look at the world. And I think that matters because whether they're speaking about a technology or leadership, personal growth, taking a risk or failing at something, possibly one of the most valuable ones, there's usually something in there that I can apply to my own work or to my own life or to my relationships, or even just in the way I motivate myself. Or even just the way that I think about a challenge that I'm facing. And sometimes those learning moments are not obvious or flashy. You know, they're not packaged as lessons, things that are, things that you can just learn as a lesson. They can be hidden inside a story about a mistake that someone made at work or in life, or a moment that somebody doubted themselves at something, or a slow process, or taking the time over time, the process of becoming better at something. When someone shares where they struggled, what took them possibly years to figure out, what went wrong throughout this journey, or what they had misunderstood, that's incredibly valuable. Because when we get to see the trial and error required to do anything well, that reminds us that our own struggles are not unusual. Our fear of failure doesn't mean we are unqualified. The learning process is messy for everyone. And one of the most impactful types of stories I've heard comes from people who talk openly about their journey that didn't go right, something that went wrong. Maybe they built a business that failed. Maybe they spent years studying something that, only to realize that they misunderstood a key concept. And that could have hurt them, right? Maybe they tried to bring an idea to a team that didn't get across the way that they had intended. When someone is vulnerable enough to share that, they're really giving you a shortcut. They're showing what potholes to avoid. They're revealing how they adapted, and they're reminding you that resilience is not a personality trait. It's a skill that forms only through time and repetition, setbacks, and reflection, maybe most importantly. And that's what I think listening with intention is one of the most underrated skills we can have. When we listen openly, without rushing to disagree or to defend our assumptions or to make judgments, what we're hearing, we can create the space to grow in these moments. We start noticing patterns and gaining new angles on existing familiar problems that we're dealing with, and seeing examples of success and failure, and also creativity and persistence that we never would have seen otherwise when we're open. I think one of the mistakes that many of us make is that we assume value only exists in the thoughts of people who carry a certain title or a certain status. We think this person is an expert, so their voice matters the most. But we overlook someone who might not have a fancy degree, but has knowledge earned from life and hardship and curiosity. And don't get me wrong, experts matter. Specialists push boundaries. They discover what's possible and set new standards. But I don't think expertise and wisdom are the same thing. Expertise reveals what someone has mastered, and wisdom reveals what someone has lived. Some of the most memorable lessons I can think of are from people who were simply honest about their fears and insecurities and attempts to figure things out. They didn't present their ideas as definitive or perfect. They simply shared what they had learned so far. And I took from that what applied to my own journey in my work or life. And the truth is, we all have something to teach someone else, even when we don't think we do, because somewhere in our life, in our habits, in our decisions that we've made, in the mistakes that we regret, in the opportunities that we either ignored or we seized, there are patterns that other people can see and relate to. And the reason I say that is because I've watched people share things they thought were small and unimportant, only to realize later that, someone listening took away something huge. Maybe it unlocked a new idea for them, or maybe it brought clarity to a decision that they might have already been leaning towards, or maybe it made them feel understood or less alone. And that's a powerful thing. That's even part of why I started sharing thoughts here and ideas like this. When I talk about a concept that matters to me, I honestly have no idea who's going to hear it or how they might interpret it. And I don't need everyone watching to walk away with the same insight. If just one person finds one little meaningful idea that makes their life better, that's great. Something else I've realized is that you don't need to have a hard, structured message to make an impact. Sometimes all you need is sincerity, and sometimes all you need is a thought that was lived, not just rehearsed. We can talk about communication techniques and body language and pacing and tone and all of this and eye contact. All of these things matter, but in a specific way. What actually stays with people is authenticity. And it's listening and speaking with intention to connect, not to impress. So It's being curious instead of defensive. It's admitting that what we don't know, or what we don't know, instead of pretending we have the answers to something. And this is especially important in a world where everyone is trying to be the loudest voice in the room. You can feel it online, in workplaces, social media, and in society. People want to speak, people want to be heard, to express their ideas. But real growth happens when we commit to listening and not just hearing sounds, but listening and trying to understand what's underneath. Why someone feels the way that they do. What shaped their opinion, where their idea came from. What values and fears or hopes are attached to what they're saying. That doesn't mean we have to agree with everything. We can disagree. We won't agree on everything. We shouldn't. But understanding what someone is trying to communicate at a deeper level teaches us how to think more clearly, how to ask better questions, consider new perspectives, and sharpen our own ideas in life. I think listening is a muscle. And just like any muscle, it strengthens through practice. Even though I say I think I'm a good listener, that doesn't mean that I can't improve. It doesn't mean that there are moments where I interrupt too soon, or I assume something too quickly, or mentally I might drift where someone is speaking or sharing something important. Listening is a discipline. Staying present, staying open, staying curious, that's the work. But it's the work that pays back, I think, because the better listener you are, the more you notice the small lessons that are hidden inside conversations, presentations, speeches, even just casual stories or random insights that come from unexpected places. So here's what I remind myself. Find the nugget. There are nuggets everywhere in these types of listening moments. The world is full of people talking and teaching and sharing, expressing things and reflecting, and one of them might have the missing piece that changes how you approach something in your career or in your relationships or in your self-confidence. So when you're listening to someone speak, ask yourself, what's the one idea here that I can carry with me? What can I take away that might challenge me, help me grow, make me think differently, or motivate me to take action on something? And if that sounds simple, it's because it is. But simple doesn't mean meaningless. If anything, it's the simple concepts that we apply consistently that shape who we become. And that's why I believe meaningful presentations don't depend on the title of the speaker, the size of the stage, or formality of the event, even the cost. The impact comes from the willingness of one person to share and the willingness of another to listen. That's where the transformation happens. That's where ideas move from mind to mind. And that's where the spark of change really begins. So just a few thoughts for today. Have an amazing rest of your day.